good afternoon again. Welcome back. I think we've re-established our connection with you. What's happening at this late stage? I understand you've got a guest to talk to.
Yes, we have the chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders, who also came in here to pay his respect to the departed king. Thank you so much, Ndabezisa, for your time. What a sad loss for the nation.
It is indeed a very sad loss to the nation and also to the institution of traditional leaders, especially when we have just lost other 3 kings within a space of 8 months. So it is a very sad loss, and you'd remember that we had just launched a very interesting project, being the Invest Rural project.
Apologies for that. We seem to have lost audio there to Tuba Vilane and the guest as he was answering Tuba's first question at the Kwakheto Mthandayo Royal Palace. Let's go back to the streets of Kwanongoma as that procession of maidens and Amabutho is making its way and getting closer and closer to the mortuary. Spamandla Goke, earlier you were sharing with us all kinds of information about what could be on people's minds. But I want to ask you something that's been on my mind, Spamandla, and I'm hoping you are able to give us a quick and brief answer about it, because there must be a lot to talk about. You, among many reporters, you've had an opportunity to interview the departed king as recently as December, but even before December 2020, you've engaged and interacted with the royal house on many occasions. For you, what stands out? I mean, what do you remember that touched you the most as you were covering issues around the Zulu royal family, especially about the departed king?
Too many things, brother, and let me summarize what I think is the most important one for me. Of course, other people will have different views, but for me, he was a very simple man. I found him to be a very extraordinary, simple man. I'm telling you that because, you know, our relationship did not start off very well, by the way. I was still working for another media house. I had written a story he considered to be a very negative story. I was sleeping in the early hours of the morning, I think about 5 o'clock in the morning. I got this call, and then when I answered my phone, he said, yeah, and I was like, okay, who am I speaking to? So for 45 minutes, he gave me a tongue lashing, you know, telling me how my story was damaging. But one thing he said towards the end of our conversation many years ago, he said, but I must agree on one thing. Your story is 100% accurate. You've got good sources. Who are your sources? And I said, no, I'm not going to reveal my sources, Your Majesty. He said, well, you must have cows to come to the palace and apologize for defying a king. And I said, well, if it means I have to go to jail by it, so be it. I'm not revealing my sources. And that's how our relationship started. Over the years, he would call. You know, I last spoke to him on the 31st of December when he called to wish me a happy new year. And when we had that conversation about him organizing a get-together for his sons, we spoke about COVID-19. He told me how worried he was about COVID-19. And the irony of it all is that while he was hospitalized in December, or should I say while he was hospitalized, he did contract COVID-19 in hospital. I remember when we were interviewing him together with my colleague Joe Komane, we wanted to ask him to use what we call in television or broadcast the lapel mic, with the small one which you put underneath and then you clip it. And then he said to me, COVID, can't you be able to use another mic, not this one? I'm scared of COVID-19. So we had to use another mic because he said he was too scared of COVID-19. And then over the years, he said to me, listen, when we are covering news of the Royal Palace and the Zulu Kingdom, everyone and anyone will claim to know. People will send you from pillar to post. They will tell you about royal protocol. When you are working, just do your job. No one will basically humiliate you when you are working. He was very welcoming, and I found him to understand the role of the media. You know, at times you will be told that you can't approach him for a comment or to interview him, but he would see that you want to interview him and he will call you to come closer. And when you take a bow, you want to interview him kneeling, he will ask you a question: how are you going to do this kneeling? You are here to work, we are not here to pay your homage. Just do your job. Forget about royal protocol. So for me, I found him to be a very down-to-earth person. Yes, at times he was a disciplinarian, by the way. You know, at times the king will be in a very good mood. The minute later, something will basically put him off, and he will be very angry, and he will be shouting at people. But he had this ability to apologize afterwards and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have shouted at you. I shouldn't have done that. I am the king. I shouldn't shout at people. Please forgive me.
Kamandla, I'm so glad I asked you that question. We'll leave you now for a while and go back to KwaKheto Mthandayo Royal Palace. We've managed to re-establish our audio connection with Thuba Vilane. Thuba, we lost you there while you were interviewing your guests there. I don't know if they are still with you, but let's hope they are, because we wanted to get their reaction as they pay respects to the departed Amazulu King Goodwill Zwelithini Ngabhekuzulu.
Yes, the chairperson of National House of Traditional Leaders, he was still telling us how they were still expecting more from the departed king. I will bring him on again because he's still with us here. You were still sharing with us how are you were going to expecting more from his wisdom.
Look, we're still expecting more. You'd remember that we have adopted the concept of developmental monarchs, where as a sector we've decided that we should not be spectators to development in our areas where we lead. You'd remember that legislation says that traditional leaders must play a supportive role to government. So we've decided that there's been too many gaps where our people in rural areas remain to be the poorest. There is no jobs, there is nothing really, there is not much that has been done to change the lives of those communities. So we decided that let us adopt a developmental monarchs approach where we turn rural areas into construction sites, where we just make sure that we turn challenges that are in those areas into investable opportunities, through a program of Invest Rural. So we're still expecting the king to give us guidance because there is quite a number of programs that they have embarked on as a kingship. If you look at development within agriculture in this area, it shows that there is a lot of work that they've done through the ITB. So we're still expecting wisdom from him. And also on the issue of land, I mean, he's done so much to fight for land that belongs to the Zulu people, that it remains in their hands. Remember, when you are a king or an inkosi, you hold the land in trust on behalf of your people. So they are the only kingship in the country that has their land in their own hands, of which is something that we're hoping that he was still going to advise us, on how they have gone through that process. But I believe that we'll soldier on as a sector. We will build unity. We would also unite around anyone that will be selected by the family as the new king, just to give him support and make sure that he's not taken advantage of, by those neoliberals that seek to destroy the sector.
I know that there is a special traditional way of planting the king. Without going into much details, can you share us? I know that some of those traditional rituals are common within Amakosi. Maybe if you can share with our viewers what one can expect as we are here today.
Look, I think even though one does not have much experience with the Zulu culture, remember, a king is a custodian of culture, and each and every tribe has its own culture in terms of how they would plant their traditional leader. Others, there is no what you call these new technologically advanced systems of how you bury a king. Would still use normal robes, normal cow robes. In other instances, we still believe in using our skin. It depends on the tribe. Others, they bury at night. I've just heard that the king will also be planted at night. Even within our culture, as Ndebele people, we would plant our king at night, and then by 12 o'clock you have a new king. So we would say that the sun has set and it has risen, so it rises again at 12 o'clock. So I am not averse, though, in terms of what is it that the Zulu monarch will do. I think it will be my first time as well experiencing a burial of a Zulu king, not necessarily any other king, because each and everyone has its own tribe.
Thank you so much, Ndabezitha, for your time. That was Inkosi sharing with us about his visit here, also to pay his respect to the departed king, as you said earlier on. But then we've been seeing people walking in. I just saw now Umntwana Uthulani Zulu, also Prince Zulu walking in. I was hoping that maybe we might also get a chance, but I also saw Inkosi Yasemvezo, Inkosi Mandla Mandela, also walking in here to also pay his respect to the king. As you will also understand that there is also a relationship between the Mandela family and the Zulu royal family. But we're expecting, as you heard from my colleagues, Pamanda, saying that the Amabutho, that side, are still finalizing few logistical issues. Then from there we will be expecting them to make their way here, and then there will be on the convoy, that's where the remains of the king will be at.
We understand that, Tuba, from what Spamandla Koke told us, and interviewing one of Amabutho, saying when they get to the mortuary, they've already arrived at the mortuary. I can tell you that right now. We are getting live visuals from outside the mortuary. They will spend some time there, a little bit, and then wait for instructions from Abantwana of the royal palace. Those are the princes who will then direct them what needs to happen before they get back to the royal palace. Tuba, just another question for you. The streaming of people coming to pay their respects, we would expect it to continue throughout until the remains of the king have arrived, because then that will be the time where the royal palace will begin the final preparations to go and plant the king in the early hours of tomorrow or night, or in the early hours of tomorrow morning between midnight and 4 a.m.
That's actually been the common practice since Friday, when the news of the passing on of the king broke up. We have a number of police officers here at the main gate, together with health officials that have been assisting in screening people that are coming in. Police officers, as you can see, they ensure that whoever that comes in through that gate, it's either they are the royal family or they are the people that they are being expected inside. We know that today mainly people that have been coming in here is our traditional leaders, Amakosi, from across the country and across the continent. As earlier on we spoke to the king that representing the Malawian kingdom. But throughout, those people who are coming in, they get sanitized here so that they will be able to go through. But in that marquee as well, that's where the officers, police officers, are also stationed to ensure that everything that is happening here is happening through according to the law. As you understand that here it's a combination of the law and the tradition. As you understand that the royal family is taking over on the issues of on the other issues. On the other side, there must also be, whatever that is happening, there must be adherence to the law.
Thank you very much, Tuba Vilane.